All right, everybody, welcome to Fantasy Football Live with the Fantasy Sports Boss. It is Monday, the NFL playoffs wild card weekend getting ready to start. Should be an action-packed weekend. Of course, we have the 6 games total. I believe it's 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and then 1 on Monday, which certainly is going to make for a very exciting slate of games that we are going to be able to enjoy over the next weekend coming up. And certainly a lot of intriguing games, a lot of storylines to get to in terms of who's playing who and who's favored over who and whatnot and so on and so forth. But needless to say, my prediction still remains the same as far as the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe, playing the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl. And I'm going to stick with that pick. Now, today, if you're new, hit the subscribe, hit the notification button. I'm going to reveal to you the 2022 Fantasy Football All-Bust team. Also going to discuss the playoff games coming up next weekend. So there's a lot going on. Now, I'm also going to release probably later on today or tomorrow my first NFL draft, mock draft with the teams that are already established. Non-playoff teams. The order has been established with the non-playoff teams, with the Chicago Bears having the number 1 pick, Houston Texans blowing the number 1 pick yesterday, picking up a victory over the Indianapolis Colts. So they moved into the number 2 spot. So I'm going to release my first mock draft for the teams that have missed the playoffs. So certainly a lot to get to, and I hope you all found success in your fantasy football leagues. Of course, it wasn't the ending that we all anticipated in terms of getting a definitive result in fantasy football in terms of Week 17 with the whole Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals situation. So I know the one league that I was still alive in, I was declared the winner. Even though I had T. Higgins still to go, my opponent had Josh Allen and Joe Mixon. I had a pretty big lead going into that Monday night game, and I was declared the winner, not only by Yahoo, but with the agreement with the other owner in the final was that I probably would have held on to win anyway. But we still split the pot just to be fair, because while it looked like I probably would have won, just to be fair, no ill feelings, we decided to split the pot. So there it went. And, like I said, I've already started releasing fantasy football season wrap-up videos. I'm going to continue to do that over the next couple of weeks. And, of course, have live streams throughout the playoffs and into the Super Bowl. And, throughout the offseason as well. Can't wait for free agency. There's a lot of running backs that are free agents this year. A lot of interesting quarterback decisions coming up during the offseason. What are the New York Jets going to do? The New York Jets have a Super Bowl caliber team outside of the quarterback position. Do they sign Jimmy Garoppolo? Do they swing a deal for Derek Carr? Those are 2 fine options I think would work really well with the Jets. What does Tom Brady do? Is Tom Brady going to end up in New Orleans with Sean Payton, like the rumors indicate? I think that would be an excellent spot for him. Certainly would boost the fantasy value of Chris Olave there. So there's a lot to get to during the offseason, but that's for another day. Looking at the playoff schedule, there's certainly a lot to like about this upcoming weekend. And of course, tonight too, we have the Georgia TCU national championship in college football. I don't think it's going to be close. I know, TCU obviously shocked the world by beating Michigan last week on New Year's Eve. Tremendous win for them. But I think this, as the Cinderella, I think the glass slipper is going to wear out here against a Georgia team chock full of NFL players on both sides of the football. This is a Georgia team that's experienced. Of course, they won it all last season. I think they're going to win it all again today. Ridiculous talent on both sides of the ball for Georgia. And they have Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle, who I think is going to be the number 1 pick by the Chicago Bears, when the draft gets underway in April. But taking it game by game. So, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. And this is a very intriguing game to me. And what's also interesting is that the 5 seeds are favored over the 4 seeds in both matchups. So the Chargers are favored over the Jaguars, and the Cowboys are favored over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they're road favorites, which is not something you typically see in the postseason. This, I think, is a fairly even matchup. Trevor Lawrence, I'm a huge Trevor Lawrence fan, as you all know. He did not play well against the Tennessee Titans in what amounted to a playoff game last week. He missed a wide open Zay Jones that should have been a touchdown pass in the second half of that game. But, he still made some big throws. They got the win. They're in the playoffs. I think this is good for the NFL. It's good for Trevor Lawrence and his development. And they get a Chargers defense that's been pretty poor all season. They haven't played well, especially, against the pass. The Chargers have struggled defending the pass all season. And that's one thing that the Jaguars do very well is throw the football. They have Zay Jones. They have Christian Kirk, who's had an underrated season. Evan Engram had a tremendous season at a very shallow tight end spot. So I think the Jacksonville Jaguars could absolutely win this game. The Chargers never really got going this season. They had the injury to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and now Mike Williams is injured again. This is one of the prime injury scenarios that we're going to have to watch leading up to this game. Justin Herbert himself hasn't really played very consistent football throughout the course of the season. It hasn't come anywhere close to matching his first couple of years in the league. So he went down as a mild disappointment in fantasy football, whereas the Jaguars were chock full of players who exceeded expectations. Engram, Kirk, Zay Jones by a mile. Even Travis Etienne, he started out the season in a timeshare with James Robinson and had that massive burst in the middle of the season. Then he went into the rut as probably the length of the season started to get to him and he got fatigued. But I think Etienne next season in particular, and what his slow finish to this season will do is allow his draft price to fall next season into the second round range, where I think he makes a good value. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars is a coin flip game, in my opinion. If you're betting on this game, I think a home underdog angle for the Jaguars is enticing to me. I don't trust this Chargers team. I do like Trevor Lawrence. I think they have a very good chance to win this game. Now, San Francisco 49ers against the Seattle Seahawks. So basically, what we saw yesterday in the late afternoon games with the Seahawks going against the Rams, and then later on with the Packers and Lions, is who is going to be that sacrificial lamb against the San Francisco 49ers, who are playing unbelievable football. This team can win a Super Bowl, absolutely, as long as the kid there doesn't self-destruct, which I don't think he will. 10 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions since he's become the starter in place of an injured Jimmy Garoppolo. You can't say there's not more you could say about Brock Purdy that hasn't already been said in terms of how impressive he's been. Mr. Irrelevant is, ice in his veins. No moment has been too big for him so far. And even if Jimmy Garoppolo winds up being healthy and available at some point in the playoffs, you still have to ride Brock Purdy. This team is unbelievable on both sides of the football along the lines. And that, to me, has always been the philosophy. You build your team along the lines and outward. So defensive line, offensive line, build up both of those lines, and then you really have something. If you have a strong defensive line, that can compensate for a weak secondary, because if you have the pass rushers that can get to the quarterback, they're not going to be able to throw down the field. Whereas if you have a weak defensive line, and even if you have 2 Deion Sanders back there, it's going to be difficult for these corners to maintain coverage down the field when you're not getting any pass rush. So I think the 49ers are just a phenomenal team. They have probably the best collection of receivers, tight end, running backs in the entire NFL. The trade for Christian McCaffrey was tremendous. George Kittle really exploding lately. He has been a major difference maker. And I think George Kittle's play has elevated this offense as a whole. I have the 49ers Chiefs as my Super Bowl pick. I have not deviated from that. Even when Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, I was a little nervous with Brock Purdy, as anybody would be. Last pick of the draft, 7th round rookie, but he has been phenomenal. He really, and again, it goes to show you how, and Mike Holmgren said it best, that no matter how much time, effort, money is spent on evaluating quarterbacks in the NFL draft, they get it wrong all the time. And this is Mike Holmgren, one of the brightest offensive minds the league has seen over the last 20 years, saying this. And I totally agree. For every Jamarcus Russell, Akili Smith, Tim Couch, Zach Wilson, you get guys like Tom Brady, Brock Purdy, late round quarterbacks who vastly exceed their ADP, and look what they're doing. Look what Brock Purdy is doing. So George Cook, Packers crushed me last night. Such a brutal end to a disappointing season. Hope Rodgers hangs it up. Can't stand the thought of him in another jersey. Yeah, George, that was really disappointing. And Rodgers, he wouldn't give up his jersey to Jameson Williams, who asked for his jersey, the rookie Detroit Lions wideout, after the game. So that might be a little telling. I'm personally tired of the Aaron Rodgers circus. I just don't even really want to read about him anymore. Now, listen, in terms of natural talent, there may not have been a more skilled quarterback in the history of this league in terms of arm strength, accuracy, athleticism, able to run. Aaron Rodgers literally checked every single box, rapid release, every single box you could possibly want from a franchise quarterback. And it's there's no debate, there's no argument. First ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest quarterbacks this league has ever seen. But I think Aaron Rodgers is an exhausting player to have on your team. He's an exhausting player to coach with all the off the field stuff. And it's not even that he gets in trouble. It's just, the drama. He did get in trouble with the vaccine situation there. He's just a high maintenance player who beats to his own drum. And I think even the team itself might be getting a little tired of Aaron Rodgers. He did take a step back this season, under 4,000 yards passing. His athleticism is just not there anymore at his advanced age. So, do they move on with Jordan Love? I don't think Jordan Love is the answer. He had accuracy problems in college. Accuracy problems in college almost always translate to the NFL as well. It's a skill that's very hard to improve. Josh Allen was the exception to that rule, but you very rarely see that. Allen Lazard, George is right. Allen Lazard kind of spoke about it too. And that's somebody who's very close to Aaron Rodgers. So if anybody's going to know about what he's going to do, that's Allen Lazard. But getting back to the Seattle-San Francisco game, I'm happy for Pete Carroll. I do like Pete Carroll. He's a fantastic coach. He really is. He's the oldest coach in the league. You wouldn't know it because he's got that, that boyish personality to him. He looks great. Full head of hair. He's always, he looks like he's like 20 years younger than he really is. Geno Smith is not going to stand a chance in this game. There's just no way. I mean, this 49ers team is legit. It's crazy how good this team is. I still listen, my list of teams that could win the Super Bowl is very short. It's Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC. I think any of those three teams can come out of that for sure. They all are capable of beating each other. In the NFC, it's now the San Francisco 49ers, and that's it. I didn't like the way the Eagles played yesterday. They looked, they did not look good at all. And I'm a Giants fan, and a team of Giants starters who were mostly second and third teamers took the Eagles down to the wire. Nick Sirianni had to be really disappointed that he had to play the starters the entire game. Jalen Hurts was instructed not to run at all. He stayed in the pocket. He wasn't allowed to run. That's a telling situation in terms of him still not being fully healthy. I think he's more injured than the team is letting on. I don't like the way the Eagles have finished this season. I really think that the 49ers are the only team that can come out of the NFC. The Vikings are paper tigers. Dallas, I'm going to get to the Dallas game in a second. My God, what the hell was that yesterday? It's really just those four teams. I think it's either Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati. All three of them are capable of winning the Super Bowl out of the AFC. I think the 49ers, we all know defense wins championships. 49ers are the most skilled team left overall, I think, in this tournament. In the NFC, they are a phenomenal. I just love the 49ers, no doubt about it. Now, the Minnesota Vikings at home against the New York Giants. I think the Giants are going to upset them. I'm not being a homer. Yes, I'm a Giants fan. Let's just get that out of the way. But this is a Giants team that's playing with supreme confidence. They believe in their coach. Brian Daboll is going to be the coach of the year, as he should. He has a plan. He had a plan from the very beginning, going for the win against Tennessee. That galvanized the Giants. It really got them confident and got them into a frame of mind that they could win, they could succeed despite all the miserable seasons they've had the last couple of years. This Giants team is firing on all cylinders right now. Daniel Jones is confident. He's playing great. 4-touchdown game, his last game against the Colts before taking a seat against the Eagles yesterday. And also, this is something that's been overlooked. The Giants, of course, lost to the Vikings. A lot of self-inflicted wounds in the second half of that game. They had a block punt. Daniel Jones threw an interception. And the Vikings needed a 60-yard field goal to win that game. Well, since that time, the Giants have welcomed back Xavier McKinney, their ball hawk safety, who was out with broken fingers for that game. They're also getting back Adoree Jackson, their Pro Bowl caliber shutdown cornerback. He will be back. So Justin Jefferson is a pain in the ass. He's a handful. He's an impossible matchup. But they now have the horses in that secondary to deal with it. You have Aziz Ojulari, who came back from injury as well, supplying very good pass rush from the one side. Kayvon Thibodeaux, who's starting to figure it all out. This guy's going to be a real star, folks. Trust me on that. Very athletic outside linebacker. He's getting to the quarterback. We all know Kirk Cousins implodes, self-destructs whenever the stakes are high. I think the Giants are absolutely going to win this game. And honestly, other than the 49ers, I could see the Giants getting to the NFC Championship. It's not out of the realm of possibility. This is a very good defense. This is a team that has a star at running back in Saquon Barkley, a confident Daniel Jones now firing on all cylinders. They have a tremendous coaching staff with Dable. Wink Martindale should be the assistant coach of the year. He has done wonders with this defense. He should have been a head coach a long time ago. Everybody else's losses are gain. So I think this Giants team is fantastic. Then you have Tampa Bay now against Dallas. So Dallas is a road favorite over Tampa Bay. I don't know what on God's earth that was against the Commanders yesterday. Old habits die hard. Sorry about that. Against the Commanders yesterday with Sam Howell making his first start. And not for nothing, the Commanders should have been starting Howell a long time ago. And in fantasy football terms, Sam Howell is somebody we're going to have to pay attention to throughout the course of the offseason because he can throw it and he can run it. And as far as Howell's concerned as a collegiate player at North Carolina, he was lauded and he was looked at as a possible first-round pick. Then Javonte Williams went to the NFL. Michael Carter went to the NFL. The offensive line, almost the entire offensive line went to the NFL. And so Howell was left with nothing. His last collegiate season got really beat up. Pressure was constantly in his face. He's not a big quarterback. He didn't have the weapons to throw to that he did previously. And so he had a bad year, and it caused his draft stock to drop. He's on the shorter side, but he's accurate. He's very athletic. He can move. There's some fast Drew Brees in him. So Sam Howell, I think in fantasy football terms, is somebody we're going to have to look at. You know, Trey Lance got all the hype last summer. I think Sam Howell will get the hype this upcoming summer. Getting back to the Tampa Bay-Dallas game. I told you all last week I took Dallas off of my list of teams that I think could win the Super Bowl. And that was before this slop monstrosity, whatever the hell that was, against the Commanders yesterday. Dak Prescott was miserable. He was awful. You know, I don't know if it's because he's lost his athleticism a la Russell Wilson, and now he has to work as a strictly pocket passer. That might take away some of the bite to his game, but he's been mistake prone throughout the second half of the season, throwing a lot of interceptions. He was downright pathetic yesterday. I know that the Commanders have a strong defensive line. The secondary is nothing really to write home about. And that was a brutal performance by Dallas. Now, that being said, they have a good matchup here for them against Tampa Bay. Now, the way to beat Tampa Bay is through the air. They have the horses for that with CeeDee Lamb, with T.Y. Hilton, who actually looks pretty good with Dallas. They have Dalton Schultz over the middle, Tony Pollard out of the backfield, Michael Gallup. They have the weapons to attack Tampa Bay down the field. You don't beat Tampa Bay in the trenches. They have very good run defense, so Ezekiel Elliott's probably and Tony Pollard are going to have some issues running the football there. But this is a decent matchup for Tampa. However, if the game is close in the fourth quarter, you just know that Tom Brady is going to come down and win it for Tampa. He's done it throughout his entire career. He will do it again if this game is right there on the table for him. 2 minutes, Tampa has the ball. Let's say 2 timeouts, he's going to march down the field and he's going to win that game. This is an excellent game. I'm really looking forward to this. I really do think that Tampa Bay, I have a nagging suspicion they're going to pull it out. Dallas tends to self-destruct in the playoffs. They've done it even going back to Tony Romo against Seattle, dropping the snap against Seattle to kick the field goal there. The not being able to get a playoff last season when the clock expired on them. You know, I don't like this Dallas team, and that's why I took them off the list of prospective teams that I think could win the Super Bowl. So I just don't see them really going far at all. They might even lose this first game. Cincinnati playing against Baltimore. Baltimore has nobody left at quarterback. I mean, it was embarrassing what they put on the field yesterday under center. You know, I don't think Lamar Jackson's going to be back. Cincinnati's going to march on in this one easily. This is a legit Cincinnati team, even though, Buffalo is going to destroy Miami. I really don't have to spend any time on that. Miami's another team that doesn't have a quarterback at this point of the season. Buffalo's just going to run and trounce Miami without much effort. Cincinnati is legit. they have the right quarterback. Joe Burrow is a winning quarterback. He just has the it factor. As difficult as it is to grade out quarterbacks every year in the NFL draft, Joe Burrow is the guy who you just knew was going to be a star. And I've said this before. Jimmy Johnson, I read his book recently, his autobiography, said, and this is one of the smartest coaches this league has ever seen, and he still evaluates quarterbacks for the draft. Going back for the last 20 years, the number one quarterback, the highest grade he had on any quarterback over the last 20 years, and there's some big names on that list, was Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow has that it factor. He fights to the whistle. He fights to the last play. He's got guts. He's strong in the pocket. The rush doesn't bother him. He's accurate. He can move. Joe Burrow is a tremendous player, and that's why he absolutely can knock off the Chiefs. He absolutely can knock off the Buffalo Bills. I think the Bengals, not sure what their odds are to win it all. Certainly probably more generous than the Bills and the Chiefs. I think the Cincinnati Bengals, if you're betting futures to win the Super Bowl, I think out of those three teams, the Bengals would have the best odds. I would bet the Bengals to win the Super Bowl over the Chiefs and the Bills. If you're just betting, looking for value, they are a legit team. Like I said, they're one of only four teams I think that could win the Super Bowl. Three of them are in the AFC, and then the 49ers in the NFC. So I think the Bengals are an absolutely legit team, no doubt about it. So I'm going to really be interested to see how things unfold there. But one thing I will tell you is that the Bengals do not fear the Bills. They do not fear the Chiefs, and they have the skill to get it done. So, like I said, I started yesterday discussing the NFL draft. Tonight we have Georgia taking on TCU. I think it's going to be a coronation for Georgia again. This team is just way too good. I can't wait for the 12-team college football playoff. I think 4 teams is just not enough. Georgia's just so good that I don't think really anybody was going to compete with them. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm surprised. I hope we get a competitive game tonight, but I just think Georgia's legit. Now, as far as fantasy football, the fantasy football all-pro team, I posted that in the live stream a couple of days ago, so make sure you check that out. Fantasy football MVP for 2022 was Travis Kelce, in my opinion. I stand by that. Almost 100 more fantasy points than the number 2 fantasy tight end, TJ Hawkinson. That's just a ridiculous number. Stat of the year, no doubt about it. He was the guy who, in my opinion, had by far the most value of any player in all of fantasy football. And you know what? Honestly, looking ahead to next season, I'm not opposed if I get stuck, let's say, with the 10th, 11th, or 12th pick in drafts next season. I am not opposed to drafting Travis Kelce and Josh Allen with my first 2 picks. Yes, not a running back. Yes, not a wide receiver. I'm willing to get the best quarterback and the best tight end, the true unicorn, Travis Kelce, who gives you a massive advantage on a weekly basis. I'm willing to go with both of those guys at the end of round 1, beginning of round 2, and then work my way from there, filling out the wide receiver running back position from that point forward. Absolutely 100%. Now, in terms of the all-bust team, fantasy football 2022 all-bust team, my criteria with this, as I do every year, is to try not to include players who didn't meet expectations because of injury. Injuries could happen to anybody. So I can't, some of the players on this list did suffer injuries, but all of them are on here because of underperformance, disappointing performance when they were on the field, in addition to their injuries. So let's get to the list. So quarterback. I picked 4 quarterbacks here who made the all-bust team. Number 1 on the list by a mile, Russell Wilson. I don't need to say anything more on that. While Russell Wilson was generally drafted in the 10, 11, 12 range for 12-team leagues in terms of single quarterback setups, he was just god-awful. Now, listen, he finished the season pretty good. His December and into January wasn't bad. And if they somehow convinced Sean Payton to coach the team, I would be a little bit intrigued again with Russell Wilson in Superflex leagues, but in single quarterback leagues, I'm completely done with him. He was awful. He's lost a step. Having to operate now as mostly a pocket passer does not jive with his game. He needs a strong running game to succeed. So Russell Wilson, it was a disaster from the beginning. He deserves his spot on the all-bust team. Joining him, Lamar Jackson. Now, I know Lamar Jackson got injured, but prior to getting hurt, he wasn't playing well either. So Lamar Jackson, those 2 40-point games in September looked like he was going to be an MVP candidate, both in real life and in fantasy football. And then the bottom completely fell out from there. He lost Rashad Bateman, and Mark Andrews got banged up. He could not saved the offense, and he really struggled before he got hurt. So Lamar Jackson absolutely deserves to be on the all-bust team. Matthew Stafford, before he got injured with the spinal contusion, which is a very scary injury, and he also suffered a couple of concussions, he was downright awful throwing the football. He's never a fast guy, and never really an athletic quarterback to begin with. He's even lost another step, completely stationary in the pocket. And with these guys who don't run well at quarterback, sometimes the drop-off is stark, like almost overnight. Like with Matt Ryan with the Indianapolis Colts this season, Matthew Stafford, same deal. It was hard to watch. And then finally, Kyler Murray. I'm not a Kyler Murray fan. You all know that. Second half of the season, he always wears down. He winds up getting injured. Prior to that, he wasn't playing well. He's kind of a petulant child, very immature. Cliff Kingsbury has been fired. Curious to see who they bring in. That could be a landing spot for a John Harbaugh or a Sean Payton, because at least they have a quarterback. And listen, nobody's taking away from Kyler Murray the fact he's very athletic. He's very accurate. He's got ability. We've seen him put up numbers before, but in fantasy football terms, you want your quarterback firing on all cylinders down the stretch and into the playoffs. Kyler Murray's trend has been the complete opposite. He does deserve his place on the all-bust team for 2022. Now, at running back, Jonathan Taylor headlines the all-bust team. He was the biggest bust in fantasy football the entire season. Even before he got hurt and after the first injury, when he came back in the field, he wasn't playing well. A lot of blame goes to the offensive line, no doubt about it. But here's the key. Guys who have the kind of insane workload that Taylor did in 2021 when he was the offensive MVP, fantasy football MVP, the next season they tend to bounce. It's a horse racing term. Usually a horse runs his best race. The next time out, he bounces, puts forth a dud of an effort. Guys who have those 300-plus touch seasons at running back, 1 year, struggle the next. We're going to have to go and take a look at which backs had that many touches this season. Taylor was just bad. He looked spent. He looked shot. He looked tired. He got injured. So, and don't forget, at Wisconsin, he had a tremendous workload and an unbelievable amount of work at college that you just don't see for college running backs. Taylor had that. He was a workhorse at Wisconsin for 3 years, and that will shorten his shelf life as a NFL quality running back. Now, DeAndre Swift is on the list. He deserves it as a late first round, early second round pick. Jamal Williams was the goal line vulture, fiend, whatever you want to call him. Jamal Williams was the guy that Dan Campbell leaned on for all the important carries. Now Swift, he was banged up again. He can't stay healthy. There's only a certain amount of touches Swift can handle per game before the health starts to go into the toilet. That's now a clear trend with him. We can't count on him as anything more than a running back 2 in PPR leagues, less than that in standard leagues. He won't be scoring the touchdowns with Jamal Williams, who is the coaching staff's favorite. Dan Campbell's not going anywhere, so he's going to have Williams back next season as well. Just a disappointing season for a guy in DeAndre Swift who's extremely talented and who could be a prime running back 1 if he could ever just find some help. Now, these two guys really screwed a lot of teams. Cordero Patterson, he deserves to be on this list because he was nowhere near the guy who turned out to be one of the biggest value plays of the entire 2021 fantasy football season. Wasn't used in the passing game. Even when he ran the football, he was pretty bad. Tyler Algier wound up taking the job and literally running with it the second half of the season. He had a very impressive rookie season as a 5th-round pick. So Cordero Patterson, he's older than you think. He's an older player. Took a while for him to finally hit his stride last season, but Cordell Patterson was a major, major problem for his owners. And finally, Chase Edmonds. We all missed on this one. I am as guilty as anybody. I sought out Chase Edmonds. I think I used a 5th or a 6th round pick on him in one of my leagues. Major, major bust. I mean, it wasn't even close how bad of an investment this was with Chase Edmonds. He was off the Miami Dolphins halfway through the season. It just didn't happen. Raheem Mostert quickly got the job over him. Looked nothing like the guy in Arizona who caught a bunch of passes and ran really well. Just shocking. I'm hoping that Edmonds ends up back with Arizona, but now that Cliff Kingsbury is not there, who knows what the offensive setup is going to look like. But Edmonds absolutely deserved it. I know some people are going to say Leonard Fournette, and I thought about putting Leonard Fournette on this list because he was awful running the football, but he did catch over 70 passes, so you have to give him credit for that. Now, at wide receiver, Michael Pittman is somebody who people will say, he's got to be on this list. Michael Pittman caught 99 passes. That was the quietest 99 catches I can ever remember in fantasy football history. I was shocked. I didn't even realize that so the Chiefs are signing John Ross to a reserve futures deal. I just wanted to pass that along. So that's interesting. But Michael Pittman, the quietest 99 catches you will ever see from a wide receiver. So I can't put him on the bus list. Guys who did deserve to be on the bus list, certainly Courtland Sutton, who we all thought, okay, him over Jerry Jeudy. I think he's going to be the guy, the main recipient of Russell Wilson's targets. Sutton was awful. You know, guys like him, guys like Kenny Galladay, Allen Robinson, you know, who don't have big speed to begin with, have to get by winning contested catches. When they lose another step, it's even more of a problem. Courtland Sutton deserves to be on this list. He was terrible. Allen Robinson, same reason. He looks shot. He looks old overnight. Gone is the guy who was a contested catch fiend, a high-end wide receiver too, Pro Bowl player with Jacksonville and Chicago. He looks cooked completely. Gabe Davis. This is one guy I was not on board with in the summer. And you guys remember I spoke about this many times. I was not in on Gabe Davis. I thought his ADP was way too high for a guy who ran very hot and cold. And we saw why. It just wasn't a good season. I mean, I know the yardage was solid, but the raw reception total was terrible. Just didn't score anywhere near the rate that we thought he was going to be. So Gabe Davis deserves to be on this list. Brandon Cooks, injured, indifferent, didn't care. Nothing like the wide receiver too he was the last couple of weeks. You know, I know the quarterback situation's ugly in Houston, but it was ugly last season. He carved out a decent year. Brandon Cooks deserves to be on this list as well. So those are all like the prime receivers that deserve to be on this list. Now, tight end, the two obvious picks, Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts. Darren Waller was hurt a lot, but even when he was on the field, he wasn't playing well. And Kyle Pitts just was sucked under with the not getting involved with this guy again next season. All right, so there you have it, the all-bus team for the 2022 fantasy football season. So like I said, guys, just, you know, I'm going to do one more video on the all-value team. I'm going to continue to post the wrap-up videos for all the key players in fantasy football this season. Heavy into the NFL draft, so stay with me. Hit the subscribe, hit the notification button. I will talk to you all soon.